Welcome and thanks for tuning in to the second act of this stupid challenge. If you missed Act 1, it will be in the description. Now let's get right into it. We meet up with the convoy, and after calling over the spider with our serious lack of music talent, we immediately turn against them the first chance we get. Karnus does not get a legendary action. He does, however, get an aura that gives all nearby allies, including himself, a 1d6 extra psychic damage to attacks. The one thing Bearheart does not protect us from. I use Scratch to stun these two orcs and kill the goblin. One of them still manages to rage, and so, while I am busy trying to deal with him, Karnus casually overkills Scratch by 34 damage and moves around killing the other Harpers. All that is left to do now is to brawl till death with him. And whilst his physical damage barely does anything to us, this psychic damage still hurts really bad. For some reason, he refuses to finish off the 1 HP wizard right next to me, who helps us with 3 magic missiles, before unfortunately dying due to standing too close. I missed 2 80% attacks in a row, before finally killing the spider for good. We immediately pick up the lantern he was carrying, and when the final Harper walks up asking us to give it to her, I decide that it would be easier to just keep it for myself. And thus, we immediately get to free the pixie and get protection from the entirety of Act 2. Level 7 that we just got only gives us a scuffed version of the alert feed. Might have to consider respecking. We approach Last Light, and some child that we never even spoke to or saw in Act 1 helps us get in. Thanks, I guess? If you're enjoying this video, why not subscribe? It helps me out a ton, and you can always just unsubscribe later. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Last Light has some very nice upgrades. Quartermassy Tally sells us the Cloak of Protection, who, since AC doesn't matter, only gives us +1 to saving throws, but it's still better than the nothingness we just had. Damon is going to be way more useful. By giving him a couple of Infernal Irons we found along the way, he gives us the entire flawed Helldusk set. The gloves are a nice temporary upgrade for the 1d4 fire damage, and the helmet easily outclasses our current one with a +2 to all saving throws against spells. He of course also sells the insane Darkfire shortbow. Since we are Bearheart, it won't do much right now, but later when we respec, it's going to be very necessary. I talk to Jaheira and head into this little bedroom, where, after succeeding a perception check, we find the Snowburst ring. It creates a circle of ice around anyone we hit with cold damage, and will be extremely important very shortly. We need Last Light to be safe, and since this is honor mode, we cannot guarantee Isabel's safety, so I just simply leave. Some crows kill themselves on us, and we arrive at Moonrise. The trader from the Goblin Camp is back, and she sells the Drake Throat Glaive. Its skill, Draconic Elemental Weapon, lets us imbue it with +1 to attack rolls and a 1d4 of our choice till long rest. Very importantly, this does not only work on itself. By dropping the Skinburster on the floor and equipping the glaive, we can buff it instead. And by picking cold damage, our 3-item combo is now ready. Anytime we hit an enemy, it will create a ring of ice around them, thanks to the cold damage on our weapon and the Snowburst ring. This will possibly make them and anyone next to them fall over. The disintegrating Nightwalkers we got from near also prevent us from falling, so we are free to traverse the ice as we please. We meet Kethric, who is as mad as ever, and head back to the camp to a very beat up Asterion. I take him to this drow, who first brews us a potion that gives us +3 to sleight of hand and the knock spell until long rest. By convincing Asterion to bite her, we also get the potion of everlasting vigor, giving us a permanent +2 to strength. I decide that we no longer need Asterion, so after telling him to go to camp, I try murdering him. But he just keeps walking. I guess vampires really are immortal, huh? Anyways, with this now permanent +3 to strength, I respec over to this stat line. This will still give us +5 to strength checks, but very importantly free up the potion slot, letting us drink other way better things than Hill Giant strength. I also decide that going for Fighter, for Second Wind, Great Weapon Fighting, and Action Surge simply is better than the pretty useless level 6 and 7 we put into Barbarian. Right away, we get to see the power of our Snowburst combo on the resurrected Harpers we got murdered earlier. I kill a few teleporting measles and some dogs who just keeps critting me every single attack. The Mason Guild's basement comes next, where after opening this hidden door, I somehow get stuck in it. I head onwards, kill a few wraiths and shadows, and open this chest for the helmet of Arcane Equity. This is the final piece of the puzzle. It will give us 2 stacks of Arcane Equity anytime we hit an enemy with our weapon. These charges give us +1 to spell difficulty class for each remaining turn, increasing the difficulty of falling on our ice by the same amount. This means that we easily can get the difficulty class as high as 20, basically permanently proning most melee enemies. To showcase this, I head back all the way to the Owlbear cave in Act 1. It has a legendary action that it can use the first time it is attacked to summon another owlbear. But legendary actions require a reaction, so if they are prone, they simply cannot use it. This works on every single boss with a legendary action in the game. I kill the owlbears and pick up the Oakfather's Embrace from the skeleton here. It makes any undead that hit us take a 1d6 radiant damage. And it just so happens that the entirety of Act 2 are undead. I go back and speak to Zarel and head into Balthazar's chambers. We find the derivation cloak here and kill Kethra's dog to not have to deal with him on the roof later. We run into Arabella and kill some shadows she trapped before taking the back entrance to the House of Healing. In this chest, we find the Poisoner's Gloves. These force any enemy we hit with poison damage to succeed a Constitution save or get poisoned. Using these in combination with the Derivation Cloak and the Broodmother's Revenge creates a nice little loop that heals us for 1d4 most times we hit an enemy and refreshes the poison duration on our weapon from our amulet. I kill some slimes and find a Flesh Melter Cloak. This would be a great option if not for the fact that it only procs upon them hitting our actual HP and not any temporary HP we may have. We do the clowniest fight yet, where these zombies just keep falling over, and head out to have these harpers do the exact same thing. It's just getting quite sad at this point. We head over to Withers and temporarily change into Bard by barely passing these checks. We get Malus Thorm to not only kill his sisters, but himself as well. I swap over to my sleight of hand gear and approach the waning moon. Thistlebolt is here, and after drinking the elixir we got from the drow, we managed to also pass the sleight of hand and performance checks here. It's time for the Gauntlet of Shar. I make sure to remove my body armor so as to not die to the Justicar's Radiant Retort. Force Conduit makes us completely invulnerable to anything they can do, and after a while we reach level 8. We pick up the Wolverine aspect here, which will maim any target we hit that is poisoned. Maim sets the enemy's move speed to 0, so in combination with the prone from our ice ring, it more or less stuns the target. I cast the Invis Scroll to sneak past Balthazar's soldiers and use the knock we temporarily have access to from the known potion to open this door. This lets me get into Balthazar's chambers early, merging the combat with him. I hit Flesh a few times to turn the temporary allies against me, so I get the XP when they die. And after over 13 straight minutes of combat, Balthazar finally perishes. Still, I am completely untouchable, so now I just have to clean up the remaining Justiciar. It only takes another 15 minutes. The knock we got from the potion refreshes after a short rest, also letting me open this 30 difficulty door into the vault, where we get to collect the Callous Glow Ring. I cheese Char's self-same trial by going naked, and the other two simply by misty stepping past them both. After going back to camp and getting Arabella's Shadow Entangle, I once again become a bard. This lets me, after approaching Urgir, get him to kill his servants, his big cat, and finally himself. Bards really are just on another level. We move on to Geringoth Thorm, and since we don't have 6,000 gold, we will have to kill her the old-fashioned way. Her legendary action lets her try to turn a nearby target into gold every time we kill one of her skulls. For some reason this AoE is extremely small though, so avoiding it is very easy. I kill 2 skulls, and she just wastes her turn on some explosions on the floor. After tanking some very minor necrotic damage from the skulls, we delete another 3, and the gold goblin falls on the ice whilst trying to reach us. Another Thorm down. Now it's finally time to kill the Githcresh. I drink the potion of psychic resistance we bought from Umelum a while back and initiate a fight in the hatchery. With our very low initiative, we don't go first and get our ass absolutely handed to us by a Thunderwave and a bow shot, before thankfully getting rage off. After that, they cannot really touch us and die in just a couple of turns. I enter the infirmary and fail a whole bunch of advantage saving throws, missing our opportunity to get the awakened buff. I take out my anger on this scientist and walk around killing a bunch of other giths, including this trader who drops the 18 dexterity gloves for us. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, whilst going in after the Blood of the Thunder, I fail a check on this trap, which I didn't even need to interact with in the first place, and fall off the edge. And even if I wouldn't have fallen off here, I completely forgot that this Gith captain has fear, and so I perish here anyways. So sadly, dishonor mode it is. Was just a matter of time after how many times I survived on barely any HP anyways. We continue on to grab the Blood of the Lathander, but instead of asserting the crest, I decide that I have had enough of the Gith's shit and just grab the mace. This causes the self-destruct trap to trigger. And so, after escaping the monastery, we watch on as the creche goes down with a bang. I return to the Gauntlet of Shar and free Nightsong before facing down with Zarel. Jaheira manages to create a giant ice surface before dying, proning most of the melee enemies. Zarel is busy black-holing the Harpers over and over, and the ranged enemies can barely hurt me at all, so we really just gotta worry about the adepts. After a few more rounds of falling over, I get to kill Zarel and finish up the remaining acolytes for another level up. We kill the Necromites guarding the roof and approach Ketheric. Ketheric has an aura called Legion of Bones that spawns an incubating skeleton anytime something dies close to him, so you have to make sure that we also can destroy it after killing anything. Ketheric and Nightsongs trade smites with each other before Ketheric yoinks them both away. The remaining Necromites bully me a bit, and I barely manage to survive this fight. This makes it clear to me that I won't be able to beat Merkel with this build, so it's finally time for a complete makeover. Level 1 goes into Warlock, and the Great Old One for Mortal Reminder, where we get to pick up the absolute build-defining Armor of Agathis, just like this absolute unit of a commenter suggested. Even though we start as Warlock, we go for 16 Intelligence, as Wizard will be our main class. At level 2, we pick up the extremely important Armor of Shadows, letting us cast the Abjuration spell Mage Armor as many times as we like without expending a spell slot. I also grabbed Devil's Sight. Level 3 goes into Cleric and the Tempest domain subclass, giving us proficiency in heavy armor, access to create water, and lets us use a reaction for Wrath of the Storm, a 2 to 16 damage lightning attack on anyone that attacks us. Level 4 and onwards all go into Wizard. I make sure to take Run, Jump, and Fall, and at level 5 go for the Abjuration subclass for Arcane Ward. Arcane Ward will block damage equal to its charges and then reduce itself by 1. These charges can be recharged by casting Abjuration spells and go up to double our Wizard level, which currently will be 12. Since we are now going to be wearing heavy armor, the heavy armor master feat is extremely good, reducing all incoming physical damage by 3. This will of course stack with the 2 damage reduction from the adamantine splint armor we made all the way back in the Grimforge. Currently we lack a good way of regaining our arcane ward charges in combat, but level 8 fixes this. Here we get both counterspell, letting us block most spells, and our main and only real abjuration damaging spell, Glyph of Warding. I also pick up haste at level 9. So how does this work? Armor of Agathis and the chill version of Fire Shield damages enemies every single time we get hit. Right now we only have level 4 spell slots, so it will be 20 from the armor and 2 to 16 from the Fire Shield. Since these both do cold damage, they can easily be scaled by wetting the enemy first, dealing damage up to 72. Callous Glow also procs on this damage. I mean, it's the glow ring after all, it literally works on everything. This results in us being able to do an absurd amount of damage to enemies by just running around, willingly walking into their opportunity attacks. We are not high enough wizard level to get Fire Shield yet, but Zarel's shield, that not only reduces all damage received from spells by 1 due to us being branded, also has Fire Shield chill on it. The final thing to figure out is how we are supposed to reach max stacks on our Arcane Ward to begin with. Arcane Ward increases by 1 for each level of an abjuration spell we cast, meaning that something like Blade Ward wouldn't do anything since it's a cantrip and doesn't have a level. The Warlock's Armor of Shadows fixes everything. By unequipping our armor, we can cast Mage Armor, giving us 1 Arcane Ward. Then, by simply equipping any armor and removing it, we can repeat this over and over and over again until we have max stacks. Earlier, when I went back to buy another set of psychic potions from Umelum, I also picked up the Creation's Echo, which will be our weapon of choice for the moment. We try out our new insane build on this Mimic that basically kills itself before I even get a turn, and get the Spine Shudder Amulet, a pretty useful trinket that we will use for the moment in order to inflict reverberation. With all this done, we are finally ready to charge after Ketheric. There is no turning back now. A few Intellect Devourers kill themselves, and I find Sevlor, who is just pretending to sleep. We free him and kill a few Mind Flayers, before taking out a whole heap of zombies. I use the one free long rest we get here before solving a puzzle and freeing this gift soul for the completely useless mind barrier, since we already had advantage on int saving throws. It's time for the final showdown with Ketheric, but instead of approaching normally, I throw an Invis pot on me and Scratch. I move Scratch over to the Night Song and position myself next to these Necromites, starting the fight with a Thunder Wave. As soon as combat begins, I use Scratch to free the Night Song. I finish off the Necromites. Dame wastes all her smites on a few Intellect Devourers, and the Mind Flayer succeeds in dominating her, but gets his concentration broken immediately by Psionic Backlash. I finish off the final Intellect Devourer, with Dame and Ketheric beginning their 1v1 once more. The Mind Flayer is clearly not happy about me ruining his plans, and goes straight to me, easily dying to our shield. Night Song gets absolutely annihilated, and my haste pot runs out. Luckily, Scratch is there to sacrifice himself in order to stun Ketheric. We drink another haste pot, wet Ketheric, and finish him off with a Glyph of Warding and a self-imposed opportunity attack. Time for Merkel and the real fight. I use Fire Shield and wet him, and after a few Glyphs of Warding and walking into 3 opportunity attacks, I finally get use of the massive explosives we got from the gnome in Act 1, as we blow up Merkel and finish him off with a fireball, successfully completing Act 2. Act 3 awaits. I hope you guys enjoyed the second act. I think I got in some pretty cool tech here. A lot of it I just winged on the spot, but a few of my friends did help me with some of this. I'm not an expert in Baldur's Gate. I am certainly not an expert in D&D either. School hours started up again, unfortunately, so I don't have that much time to make these, but I still managed to get it out within a week, which was the goal after all. Here's hoping the third one is done this week as well. Alright, hope you have a great rest of your week, guys. I'll see you later. Bye bye.